Hello, everybody. I am Patrick Daugherty, joined by Kyle Dvorchak. It is our Week 14 Rotoworld waiver wire stream. Kind of a bigger week than we've had in the past few weeks, Kyle. At least a few names that have to be added. Last week, I don't think there were any names that even had to be added. So we'll take all your waivers questions. We'll take all your anything questions. Some leagues keep trades open. Everyone has got lineup decisions. Only 2 teams on bye this week. We have kind of a full slate. So it's going to be a bit of a crazier week. Everyone trying to make the playoffs. There's 1 week of the regular season left? I believe this is the final week of the regular season.
Yeah, for most leagues.
Used to be the first week of the playoffs until Roger Goodell added a week to the schedule. We used to always be 14 to 16. Now it's 15 to 17. As long as your league does it right and does not go through week 18. Kyle, I just said it's a bigger week than it was last week. We really struggled to even identify like an ad of the week last week. This week, I would say there are probably 2 ads, maybe both at the same position. Who would you say is the ad of the week for week 14?
I'm sorry that this is going to cause nausea for many of the listeners or viewers, but it's Ezekiel Elliott. It's Ezekiel Elliott because Ramondre Stevenson looks highly unlikely to play this week. I believe they're the Thursday game, so a short turnaround. And Zeke saw 20 touches, which was a season high by far after Stevenson went down last week, got over 90 yards from scrimmage. He's going to be the guy for this very mediocre offense in a very low, one of the lowest total games in the history of the NFL, the past 40 years. That's a lot of touches, man. That is a lot of touches.
Yeah, people who love to comb through StatHead and Pro Football Reference are having trouble finding lower total games. There have been a few, but it's just a good matchup too. Like the Steelers are not going to be able, with Mitch Trubisky, as poorly as the Patriots have been playing, the Steelers are not going to be able to like dictate the pace of play and tempo in this game. And Zeke, for the first time all season, received 20 touches against the Chargers. I think 20 plus touches is a pretty good bet against the Steelers, unless he's just like spent on the short week. But I just don't see that being the case. And a few other people, of course, he's a not in my league absolute superstar. Like he might be the 1-1 pick and not in my leagues, Kyle. But what about Tyjae Spears as we wait for word on Derrick Henry and his concussion?
Well, yeah. So Derrick Henry leaves in the fourth quarter. It was really early in the fourth quarter. It was either 10 or almost the full 15 left. Doesn't return. Even when the game gets into overtime, still doesn't return. I believe it was either the next morning or late that night. ESPN's Adam Schefter, as expected, says he's in concussion protocol. I watched him leave after a hit to the head, and he didn't return. That all checks out. Mike Vrabel just says he's not in concussion protocol. He said that earlier today.
I missed that.
I only know that because the Rotoworld account tweeted out the waiver wire article, fractions of a second, the speed of light that it took from the tweet to reach Twitter HQ. It goes out, hits a Titans fan, their phone, fractions of a second later, fingers also moving at the speed of light. He's not in concussion protocol. I'm like, that's stupid. I saw him. I watched it happen. This is my game. But 2, Adam Schefter tweeted, he's a pretty reliable reporter. Mike Vrabel said he's not. I don't know. Mike Vrabel said he's not. He's the coach.
Well,
we'll
find out.
Would know.
Yeah, we will.
So you still have to add Tyjae Spears if he's in your league, because the confusion around this alone at least has my ears perked up. It's very possible that his symptoms reemerged 2 days later. He's back in concussion protocol. And even if not, even if you're stuck with Tyjae Spears, he is one of the best handcuff options in the NFL right now in terms of being the 1-for-1 replacement. This team does not have another running back with a single carry on the roster at this point. They don't even bring 3 running backs to games. So still worth an ad. If you're in a pinch, he's still got some PPR juice. The real upside, though, is that this Derrick Henry situation pans out with Henry not playing.
Well, we don't get an official injury report until Thursday for the Titans because they're playing on Monday night. But, if he says he's not in the protocol, then pretty good chance he's playing. So
yeah, I don't know.
Not going to be a great matchup for him, but it's a pretty good chance he's playing.
Is it Dolphins for them?
No, it is. Oh, it is the Dolphins. I was thinking of the Jaguars. It is the Dolphins, but game script is going to go probably totally haywire. It's in Miami.
It's a classic. Tyjae Spears played 35 snaps to Derrick Henry's 29.
It is. So, this is the wrong question to ask. You don't grind defenses. But anyone off the top of your head, do you know any really great playoff slate defensive lineup? By the way, if you have any questions whatsoever, get them in tonight. Do not be shy. We've got some questions to get us going here, but do not be shy. Get us in some questions. And a general answer for Patrick is that there's not going to be anyone who has an amazing week 15 to 17 slate. And that it's a good time of year, as we've talked about in the past, to actually roster 2 defenses where the contingency value. I don't know if that's the right way to use that phrase. Is this better from having a second defense that you can maybe use in a week or two over some wide receiver 5 or 6 that you're just like plainly not going to use?
Yeah, so like if you're adding Devontae Parker this week, dude, championship week isn't for you. So.
No, it's true. Just add a second defense, and it feels sacrilegious, and we love to stream defenses, but it's a great time of year to roster 2 defenses, is what we'll say. So I don't think we really know off the top of our head, though.
I actually do know. I believe this is maybe I'm misremembering, but I believe Lindorphins asked a similar question, except was the homie enough to say, I believe it's the Falcons. So I looked it up and it would check out.
Oh, yeah.
The Falcons. It's the Falcons getting their final 3 games, for most teams, the playoffs. Panthers, obviously, smash spot. Colts, not great, but it's Gardner Minshew. Who cares? And Justin Fields, too. I love Justin Fields. Dude loves taking sacks. So maybe that wasn't the team they came up with, and I found it on my own. But either way, Lindorphins, I think it was Lindorphins a few weeks ago, put me down this rabbit hole. So Falcons, who are not like a defense that I imagine is rostered in a ton of leagues, is a good spot. And even this week, they get Baker Mayfield and the Bucs. Like, if you're forced to play them this week, perfectly fine.
Yeah, they've been producing a fairly decent clip. I think they're right in the middle of the pack for the defenses and low scoring games. It's kind of counterintuitive. Sometimes you want a defense that's involved in high scoring games, but when they're facing those really, really bad quarterbacks, it's just a money printer. Boring running back is one. Fellas, I've had Stafford on my bench outscoring Herbert, who Denny will probably include in his regression file soon. Probably true. Is outscored him by 20 points 2 weeks in a row. At what point do I make the switch? Obviously, it depends on the matchup, of course. Obviously, Kyle, there's been some unsustainable positive touchdown regression for Matthew Stafford. The Rams have gone super, super run heavy. In a vacuum, do you prefer Matthew Stafford at all over to Justin Herbert? And just with the Week 14 particulars, it's Justin Herbert versus the Broncos and Matthew Stafford versus the Baltimore Ravens. 2 very poor matchups for our hero quarterbacks here.
Yeah, there was like a 5-week stretch at the start of the season where the Broncos were the best defense in the NFL to play against, and they've tightened up the ship. I mean, I think some of that was just randomness, as all these stats are. But 2, I do think they're just a better defensive team at this point. But the Ravens are a nightmare matchup. They are like the next step below the Browns in terms of how ugly all their games turn out to be, especially because, one, the Ravens offense can just kill clock away. The Browns offense doesn't inspire either team to score points, so they get there in a different fashion for the most part. And there's a really good defense. So I'm going with Justin Herbert. It's a better matchup, not a great matchup. Like I said, the Broncos have turned it around, but the Ravens are probably like 3 on the rankings of defenses I don't want my quarterback to play. They're either 2 or 3. I think Browns, despite Stafford tearing them, apart this past week, are still probably my number 1. But that even opens the door for the Ravens to maybe be the scariest matchup. And Herbert's better. Like, say what you want about fantasy production, dude. Herbert's better.
Yep, Stafford was 7 touchdowns over the past 2 weeks, but that really is just kind of him regressing to the mean. I think he's going to revert back to 1 to 2 touchdowns. The Broncos are not a great matchup. As you said, the Ravens are just a horrible matchup. And it's so tough with Justin Herbert. I have him in a lot of leagues, and you're just not getting big plays from him anymore. You're not really getting that many overall touchdowns from him anymore. The floor remains fairly reasonable, though. I mean, even the Patriots in a really good defensive matchup, they didn't shut him down. He was more shut down by drops, which is frustrating, but they're going to catch the ball at some point. These Chargers receivers, I say famous last words. And the floor is pretty good with Herbert. He has better ceiling odds this week than Stafford. Stafford has almost no ceiling odds this week against the mighty Baltimore Ravens, who are coming off a bye. Would we drop Jaden Reed?
Sorry, I was going to say, for reference, the Ravens have actually given up the fewest fantasy points to quarterbacks. Browns are just behind them. But yeah, they're the 2 hardest matchup for quarterbacks by far.
But the Ravens, I thought at first it was a really soft early schedule, but then it's just continued into the far more imposing part of their schedule. Jay Money needs to know, would we drop Jaden Reed or Zach Charbonnet for Dameon Pierce or Tyjae Spears? Also, would we keep the Cleveland defense or drop them for any of the Falcons, the Texans, or the Patriots? What do you say on the first one, Kyle? Are we adding Dameon Pierce, let's say, who reclaimed lead back duties in a game the Texans led wire to wire against the Broncos on Sunday?
I'm probably still holding on to Charbonnet, unless you think you desperately need a start this week. Like that spot, RB2 spot, is really down to one of these guys. I'd rather be banking on what if Ken Walker's injury is a little worse than we expect and we get another 2 starts from Charbonnet or something like that, where I'm still not confidently starting Pierce at this point. Am I ranking him ahead? I guess, yeah, I probably am. But that's not going to be the most confident I rank him. Where Charbonnet, anytime Walker misses, is going to rank somewhere between 9 and 14, depending on the matchup.
There's very little difference between Charbonnet and Pierce's floor, and there's just way more ceiling for Charbonnet. It is a horrible matchup. They have the 49ers this week. So you don't really want to use either of them this week. I guess if you had to use one, well, I know you're still using Zach Charbonnet this week if Ken Walker doesn't come back. We just don't know if he's coming back.
You're still banking 20 touches, even though like definitely efficiency takes a hit when you play the 49ers.
And let's look up the Browns schedule real quick.
It's not good. I know it's not good because they probably get the Ravens again.
No, it's good. The Browns defense, you are not dropping the Browns defense, is all I can say. It's the Jaguars this week. Then it's the Bears. Then it's the Texans, which, say what you will about the Texans, there could maybe be some sacks and turnovers in that game, even though CJ Stroud has not been committing many turnovers. And then they have the Bears in week 15 and the Jets in week 17.
I was thinking it was backwards. I had one main event team where we had a knockdown drag-out fight over dropping the Cowboys, who have a bad schedule, to pick up the Browns like 3 weeks in. I'm sure Deron Bland had just had like his third pick six in a row, but we're like, we got to play for the playoffs. And yeah, I forgot Cleveland's matchup. Really good. So no reason to move on from them.
Real quick, would you drop Jaden Reed for Damian Pierce? Christian Watson is now hurt again with his hamstring. We don't know if he's going to play this week. He probably will not be playing this week.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't drop Jaden Reed. Like I said, maybe you were desperate for that extra spot, but I mean,
if you're really desperate for running back, I think you probably could get away with dropping Jaden Reed for Damian Pierce.
I think there's a decent chance, though, that whoever your RB2 is right now is better than Damian Pierce coming off of like one game back as the starter. Maybe Pierce, like if he just continues to push Devin Singletary back to true RB2 duties, then we can kind of throw him back in the mix. But no, for me, I'm not there yet.
That's the thing with the Texans. I feel like the Texans might be coming to a legit hot hand backfield. Whatever running back DeMeco Ryans thinks looks better that day is who they're going to feature. Or Bobby Slowick thinks looks better that day. They're just going to feature him. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if this Sunday Devin Singletary just plays 65% of the snaps again. And we're like, what the heck? Like we thought we'd figure this out. But just as 80% of the snaps for Devin Singletary in week 12 did not equal. He was the top dog over Damian Pierce. One game where Damian Pierce is the top dog. Doesn't mean it's a trend yet. And it's just going to be a really, really frustrating backfield for now. Peter John is wondering, would we play Keaton Mitchell over Austin Eckler? He had 14 carries for 18 yards against the Patriots. Austin Eckler, Kyle. But Keaton Mitchell, it seems like he's hard cap maybe on like that 8 to 10 touch range. Keaton Mitchell has the Rams in week 14, and Austin Eckler and the Chargers have the Broncos. Who are you playing? Apparently the Broncos are becoming a run funnel, I've been told. What funnel are they becoming, Kyle? Anyways, who are you playing in week 14?
I mean, I assume they become a run funnel because they've been gashed on the ground throughout the year. But like we said, their defense has changed a lot. I'm still taking Eckler because of the touches. But like, if you tell me that was a futile effort in 5 weeks, like I kind of believe it. He definitely isn't the same Austin Eckler. Putting it kindly, he looks washed.
I think he's hurt. I don't know how he couldn't be hurt. And the big problem is that he's not catching the passes. And I think one of the reasons he's not catching the passes is because he just hasn't been explosive. So they don't see the point in checking down to him like they used to. Where now if you check down to Austin Eckler, it's 3 or 4 yards guaranteed. Where in the past, he can make one move and turn that pretty easily into 8 or 9 yards. And that explosive ability has just not been there this year. And for a while, I was really frustrated. Like, why aren't they targeting Austin Eckler more with all these receiver injuries that they have? But after just, watching him play the past few weeks, you kind of understand why they're not targeting him more. And I don't think he's just suddenly washed, but it doesn't really matter. We don't know what's going on. I think it's probably injury, but it's a pretty long trend at this point. And but I'm still playing Austin Eckler over Keaton Mitchell. He's getting 2 times as many touches.
Buries him, dirt, shovel. I'm still playing him, which is how I feel too. Like at the end of the day, touches matter a lot. They do a good job predicting fantasy points, and Keaton Mitchell doesn't get a ton of touches, and Austin Eckler does. I will regret saying all of this in 7 days.
Touches are still by far the single most important predictor for fantasy goodness. Admiral Nita needs to know if we're dropping Adam Thielen or Deontay Johnson, who's on a short week with Mitch Trubisky against the Patriots, who allowed 10 or fewer points in 3 straight games. For Zeke or the Saints defense, I'll look up who the Saints are playing this week, Kyle. They're playing the Carolina Panthers, and the game is in New Orleans. Can we drop both of these receivers? Neither of them. In a vacuum, I still don't really want to drop either receiver. What do we tell Admiral Nita?
I mean, assuming you're starting Zeke, even for 1 week. Yeah, drop that.
Because the Thielen thing's over, right? It just
seems like
I don't know why it's over necessarily, unless he's out of gas. Because he's been like, we all made fun of him this summer. He was not out of gas. he just like was straight up not out of gas coming into the season. Still had a lot left in his legs, but as things have gone south for the team, and yeah, I mean, my goodness, he has 4 catches for 27 yards over the past 2 weeks and 2 really good pass matchups in the Titans and the Bucks. He could pop back up anymore. We don't even know what this Panthers offense wants to be, though. I mean, they don't have a coach. Like we just don't even know what they want to be. He's kind of a safe drop. Diontae Johnson, you're probably still holding on to just because the floor, I think, is a lot higher than Adam Thielen still. So do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I also think that if you don't think you're starting Diontae over the next week or two, it's okay to drop him. I'd prefer to hold on to him, but like if this is a win and you're in situation this week and the Saints defense meaningfully changes how your lineup looks, it's a perfectly fine thing to do. It's Diontae Johnson. You're not cutting a world beater out here. And Thielen, as you pointed out, I do think I think defenses are playing him differently. He's just getting open at a far less often clip as he has been.
We know how to word good.
Look,
we know how to word
weekend.
good. Yeah,
lots of games, long weekend. So yeah, he's not getting open. Like his receiver tracking metrics from ESPN are way down. He's also getting less production when PFF deems him as open. So I think he is slowing down. He was 34 and is probably something like his 12th NFL season, something close to that. So I mean, he came in the league like a little later. Yeah, he's old and defenses don't have that big of a task to take him away. And he is the only person you can take away on this offense.
You made a really good point to her. Even if it's just for 1 week with Zeke getting these 20+ touches is worth it. It's the time of year where a 1 week move is a very good thing. You have to maximize your weekly odds of winning at this point. And so 1 week moves are not to be frowned upon. And the Saints, I mean, too, yeah, if you have to win this week to get into the playoffs and you're not starting Diontae Johnson or Adam Thielen, cut them both. Worry about next week. Fire up the Saints.
Set a trap for someone who starts Adam Thielen next 2 weeks from now.
Say Bang and Play has a loaded question, but he's looking for a trade of a player to start every week in my flex. The players he's willing to trade are Cup, Aaron Jones, same. K9, K9's Kenneth Walker, right? Christian Kirk or Gus Edwards. I mean, so like who are we most willing to trade here? I mean, maybe try to cash in on Cooper Kupp's name value. Does this sound good to you, Kyle?
I mean, can we acquire anything for Aaron Jones? I will take whatever I can get.
You take whatever you can get for Aaron Jones, absolutely. But I mean, it seems like they're kind of just keeping him off injured reserve. They're making this kind of surprising playoff push. I think they're willing to keep his roster spot open just because they want to see they come in Monday and see how his knee feels, basically. And they're willing to gamble that maybe he'll be in fewer than 4 games, but I have no idea if it's going to be in fewer than 4 games that he's back. I think the name to trade there is probably Cooper Kupp because we're all in general agreement there's not the same Cooper Kupp. Maybe you can find someone willing to gamble like Cooper Kupp is still going to finish the year strong.
I agree with that.
Might be
probably
your best
true
chip.
that the name brand value of, I know he's hurt last year, but he also crushed for half the season, was one of the best receiver seasons ever before that, and is coming off a good game now, is probably enough to keep his like fringe wide receiver 1 hopes afloat for other fantasy managers. For me, I think there's a floor falling out potential for him.
Reaper has kind of a non-fantasy question, but it has fantasy implications. Will the Bills get their bleep together and make the playoffs compete? What, do you think we're seeing the Buffalo Bills in the playoffs? I kind of do, to be honest. I don't know what their like official odds are right now on 538 or whatever.
I got one of them pulled up.
30%. What are their odds? What are their like official computer odds right now? Computer odds. I say like a boomer.
What is? Get out your calculator.
Get out the computer. Can you get on the computer for me, Kyle?
I'm on the computer. Yeah, I'm on the internet. I'm surfing the webs, and Sumer Sports has them as 21%, the 20th best odds of making the playoffs. Not dead, but like hanging out with the AFC or the NFC South, just behind both Tampa Bay and New Orleans.
Their big problem, the Bills' big
LA.
problem, not to cut you off, Kyle, but to cut you off. The Bills' big problem is, I think it's been kind of bad luck. I think it's been kind of fluky, but it came against a pretty soft portion of the schedule, all things considered. And that even if they start playing a lot better now, like regress to their mean, they have the Chiefs, they have the Cowboys, they have the Dolphins for 3 of their final 5 games. One of those games is the Chargers, which, say what you will, is not a pushover.
Yeah, if that's your easy game, it's not great.
So their big problem is they were discombobulated during the soft portion of their schedule. And even now, if they look like the Buffalo Bills, Like no one's going 5-0 during that stretch probably. And that might really be their
That's a good point. They blew the easy ones. They blew the gimmies. The Broncos are not like a good team. They're fine, but you're the Bills. You should kind of stomp them. They lost the Patriots. How did they lose the Patriots? Oh my God.
By the way, the Patriots are the 5th team they're playing down the stretch, by the way. So
well, that's one win on the board. But I mean, like you said, getting what you said, they have Chiefs.
They have the Chiefs, the Cowboys, and then
a really tough run.
Week 18, they have the Dolphins. The Dolphins could already have like the number 1 seed sewn up by then. So they need to hope that the Dolphins win all of their games between now and Week 18 and have nothing to play for in Week 18, because that would kind of take one off the board for the Bills. But yeah, it's just they really have made it's a mess of their own making. And
yeah, I think I kind of agree with the odds of 20-ish% of them making it, which is to say they're not likely to make it. I mean, you roll dice and you're really hoping to get a 6. I don't think they get it. I don't even think the Dolphins they have that out though, because the Dolphins are pretty low odds to get the number 1 seed. My guess is they're so low that my guess is it's they still need a win and help at the end of the season. So they don't even have that kind of out.
I think even if they have the number 1 seed, that's a petty enough rivalry, and they might not want. They might knowing they have the bye want to stay sharp and not be off 2 weeks in a row, and they might even play their starters for a while anyway in that game.
The Dolphins were up by like 25 at the 2-minute warning, and I got a Devon Achane touchdown come across my feed. so yeah, they may, I don't want to say petty, but maybe enjoy their points enough.
Yeah, they do enjoy their point. And the Bills Dolphins has just become it's been a fierce rivalry. It's in a very fierce phase of the Bills Dolphins rivalry. Bro, I forgot to sorry, I'm not trying to make fun of you on there. I forgot to send Saquon for Eckler a bit ago, and I forgot. My friend just accepted it after he dropped 4 this week. Did he lose the trade? Wow, that is, man, that's unethical, by the way.
No. You get to take those.
No, Juan, that's unethical by your friend. I don't agree with Kyle. But did Juan lose the trade when he forgot to cancel the trade, Kyle?
You ever do that? The only league I'm in that is like actively trading is like an old dynasty league where everyone's constantly sending out offers, so I have to remind myself to destroy all the old ones.
No, yeah, I'm one of the people that gets frustrated probably on the text chain, like Pat hasn't responded to the trade offer. Like, sorry, because like I do have a bad habit. Like I see it, I'll get a trade offer like 2 minutes after you send it. Like I have no interest in that, and I just don't do anything. Or yeah, you really should send a text, or you should cancel it, or you should send an email, or you should send a WhatsApp. You should do something. You should send a snap. Am I right?
Oh, folks? Snapchat your friends. Yeah, send them a little snappy. I think at this point, yeah, you're probably taking Saquon over Eckler season long. Just the way Eckler looks, he seems to be a bit lost. Whereas like Saquon, I get that the offense is definitely worse, but they're moving in the right direction. Like Tommy DeVito has fully pulled out of like his first 2 games was like, oh, this guy's Tim Boyle minus. He's better than that. Like he's a serviceable backup who can not get destroyed. And the Chargers are moving the other direction. At least I thought they were a really good offense. Now they put up 6 points. They're trending towards bad. So
they are.
I guess, so I think Saquon, given that he still actually looks good, and the offenses, they're not going to cross, they're not going to converge, but they're at least both meeting in the middle somewhere of like Chargers are the 13th best offense and the Giants are the 22nd. Like the difference between those is not as big as I thought it would be 3 weeks ago.
It turns out Mike Williams is the most important player in the entire NFL, Kyle. Sonny, waiver wire for week 14 needs one of Josh Downs versus the Bengals, one of Zay Flowers versus the Rams, one of Rashee Rice versus the Bills, T. Higgins versus the Colts, Jaden Reed versus the Giants. What are we telling Sonny?
I think Zay Flowers. I think without Mark Andrews, we want to still be buying our Ravens, and he's still the best Raven out there. The other one would be Rashee Rice, which is a tough scene for T. Higgins to not make the top 2 on this list. But like this Bengals offense just isn't going to be it.
No, T. Higgins outside the top 36 now. I agree with Zay Flowers as my number 1 choice. I do think that Odell Beckham might be the number 1 receiver for the Ravens. They've really been building towards that. They've been telegraphing that with a very heavy hand. And Rashee Rice, the Chiefs, they're trying to get their house in order headed in the playoffs. They are finally, I think, starting to admit that there is some difference between these receivers, and it's not just a 6-man, whatever goes rotation. Rashee Rice, his snap percentage still needs to be higher. They're finally making it a point of emphasis to get him the ball, and his usage, I think, not this is some original opinion, is going to grow down the stretch. They need him so bad that I do like Rashee Rice for the stretch run, but Zay Flowers, he is the pick there. Chad is here every week. What do we think it'd be? So do we think it would be smart to 1.5% Spears? Okay, of his fab, and hope all the bidders ran elsewhere once the Henry is fine news broke, and hope he earns an expanded role with a strong play. Tyjae Spears snaps have been inching upward ever so slightly all season. What do you think? Is Tyjae Spears a good ad, even with Derrick Henry playing this week?
Yeah, I think he's still a fine ad. I basically every week he's probably been on the waiver wire article the most of any player this year because he is clearly the number 2 back. Like I said, they literally don't have a single other back on the roster with a carry. They don't bring a third back to games. And he catches passes. So when he takes over for Derrick Henry, sure, probably doesn't get as many carries. That makes sense. But he's going to get 14 to 15 carries plus 4 to 5 catches. Even if we don't see that this week, you still have any given week in the playoffs that if Derrick Henry does get hurt again, you have a top 10 fantasy running back potentially. And he's borderline usable, especially in like we think the Titans might lose this week, especially in games when they lose. If it's a half PPR or full PPR league, you could flex him if you're in a deep spot. So,
yeah, Tyjae Spears, he is the absolute classic. He's too good to be on the waiver wire, but he's still always one of the first. Like, I really got to cut somebody this week.
He's both been added and cut more than any other player.
He's like a Major League Baseball player. He's too good for AAA, not quite good enough for the majors. Chad has another question here, which I think is probably worth tackling. With the super murky Christian Watson situation, I would lead towards him not playing this week, Chad. I mean, that was the kind of injury that was like Chris Collinsworth, he kind of like involuntarily laughed because he didn't want to be laughing at a player getting hurt, but it was just so absurd. Like, just like, really, man, like your hamstring is just giving out, like you're just running on the sideline. Like,
I know, it was so confusing. It really looked like he was just trying to stay in bounds and go down. And then you're like, oh no, he like popped something.
No. So thankfully it's not like an Achilles or anything like that. But with Christian Watson injured, Jaden Reed cooling off, could this be a week to stream Tucker Kraft and hope for increased volume? He has established somewhat against all odds a floor, Kyle, Tucker Kraft.
Yeah, he's fine as a floor option, I think. Not really sure what ceiling he possesses on this offense. Like, still going to be, at best, the third pass catcher. I'd probably, like, project him for the same role as, like, Dontavion Wicks or whatever. I'm going to guess he ranks as tight end 15 for me. We do have all the teams back, so maybe it's closer to 16, 17.
All
like,
the teams but 2. Put some respect on the Commanders and Cardinals name, Kyle.
Cardinals, yeah. I can't believe they're doing bye weeks this late. It's unreal.
It is actually legitimately unreal, but we digress.
Yeah, and that's 2 tight ends who maybe would have ranked ahead of him. So yeah, he's probably a top 15 tight end, and that is in the streaming conversation, especially like assuming Isaiah Likely got snapped up in all your leagues or whatever. He's probably close to the top streaming option. I mean, I was writing up like Chigo Okonkwo this week, even though his role is fairly weak, he's still among the best options we have. So
no one wants to keep Jaden Reed right now. Are we dropping Jaden Reed for Brandon Cooks? I think that's probably a pretty easy yes, isn't that, Kyle?
I don't know, I'd say it's the easiest yes. I mean, Cooks has just been sun running on touchdowns. He's 3rd in the NFL in touchdowns since week 6. He's the wide receiver 8 since week 6. But all of it is because of the touchdowns.
But it's a good touchdown bet to place because he's in this elite.
It is. Offense. It is. Yeah. I mean, that's what I wrote up both like last week and I think waiver wire and this week in 32 stats is like, man, this guy is running insatiably hot. Checks all the box scores of the Cowboys. Yeah, I guess that does check out that this guy would run hot, but he hasn't always. I mean, his target share has been pretty weak. His air yard share has been weak. You're just banking on touchdowns. Honestly, the Packers offense is kind of getting their stuff together, and Jaden Reed should be the team's second receiver. I actually think I'd hold on to Jaden Reed.
I would pick up Brandon Cooks with knowing full well he could zero ball, in your words, in your second flex spot. But he's the kind of flex who can flip a matchup on like 2 or 3 catches because of one of the catches.
Yeah, he's still a good start. Like I've had him as a start in sits for like 2 or 3 weeks, saying exactly like, yeah, he doesn't have a great role. He plays a decent amount of snaps and gets some targets on the hottest offense in the NFL.
Reed, to me, even with Watson out, Reed just kind of strikes me more as like a 4-catch floor guy with pretty good touchdown odds of his own. He's kind of been a touchdown scorer, but I think Brandon Cooks' touchdown odds are the same, if not better. And they're a lot better ceiling. We'll stick here with the figure real quick. Pick up the Patriots or Vikings defense. The Patriots, Kyle, have the Chiefs at Denver at Buffalo. This guy's hurting for playoff options, I think. And then the Vikings have at Cincinnati, probably worth it alone, versus the Lions versus the Packers. Not a great schedule, but certainly better than the Patriots is.
Yeah, I mean, if we're taking one of them, you take the windmill matchup for the first Vikings, and you're probably cutting them and playing someone else over the next 2 games.
Yeah. You're trying to survive week 15. You're trying to survive week 15.
And they're a good survive week 15 play, and you're trying to move on after that. But the Patriots, there was like nothing in there that really sounded intriguing.
No, it's not a good schedule. I'm assuming a lot of the defenses must already be rostered, but the Patriots, even as well as their defense isn't playing, not a good ad there. Elisha is wondering, half PPR has McCaffrey, Kyron, Achane, Connor, Javonte. Holy Lord. Keenan, Amonra, Devontae Smith do not have a solid tight end. He wants to trade Devontae and Achane for CD and Ferguson, 2 Cowboys, putting a lot of eggs in the Dallas basket. Yay or nay for Elisha, Kyle?
Yeah, go for it. It's not like the greatest upgrade at tight end. I don't know who you have, but I'm not like windmilling Jake Ferguson.
No.
But CD is like a top 3 rest of season wide receiver. Like that upgrade alone, because you can just keep playing Christian McCaffrey, who's the RB1 on the year, and Kyron Williams, who is like the RB2 in points per game on the year. He missed a few games, but on a per game basis, he's just been as good as anyone. You're not losing much by subbing out Achane for Kyron. You're gaining a ton by getting CD, and what I assume is either a final flex or third receiver spot.
CD's maybe a top 5 skill player for the stretch run. So
yeah. Absolutely.
Absolutely doing it. Chad, so we've got, if you have questions out there, we are going to get to them. We have a lot of questions from people who have not been answered yet. We're going to get to them. Chad's just asking some good ones. Is Trey Palmer off the radar again? Rest of season has not been doing much. Can we safely drop Trey Palmer with bye weeks over Kyle, except for, of course, the Commanders and Cardinals?
Yeah, I mean, was he ever on the radar much? I say this as someone who I remember adding him in Dynasty. He was
catching 3 or 4 passes a week for a while somehow. I think he's stealing some targets and snaps from Chris Godwin. Not snaps. I think he's stealing some targets from Chris Godwin, but it's not enough.
Not enough, exactly. Yeah.
If you're starting, so maybe it's a 14-team league. I'm doing some absolutely insane stuff in my 14-team leagues, but outside of a 14-team league where you've got a really rocky bench, I don't know why you would be starting Trey Palmer.
Yeah, like Devontae Parker is a better ad, and that's like disgusting to say, but it is almost certainly true. He saw like over half the air yards and a 30+% target share on a terrible team, but Trey Palmer just isn't seeing the ball enough.
Kyle, what do we think of your guy, Noah Brown? Rest to see. You realize Noah Brown was good recently. He did 0 ball yesterday. Tank Dell, though, out for the season. What do we think of Noah down the stretch?
Yeah, I mean, this is a really good setup, especially for, like, as unfortunate as Tank Dell went down. Like, if Robert Woods goes down, you're like, oh, that just doesn't matter. Maybe it changes up the snaps, but Tank Dell earns a very high percentage of targets when he's on the field. He is a strong targets per route run player because he's really good. Now Noah Brown gets to share the field with really good Nico Collins, not really doing much at all Robert Woods, and Dalton Schultz is banged up. Like, he could pace himself as the number 2 receiver on this team by a pretty wide margin, including Dalton Schultz, including the tight end, which right now is Brevin Jordan. He could be seeing a lot of targets from CJ Stroud, who is like the best rookie quarterback of the past forever.
Juan is wondering if he needs to unfriend, by the way, the guy who accepted the zombie trade offer. And I say everyone has a different personal code of ethics. I would never do that, but I could see even like a very ethical person be like, I don't know, man, you made the offer and you didn't cancel it.
You're looking at him, brother.
I know. No. Maybe send them a sternly worded text, but you can remain friends. Not trying to answer all frivolous questions here, but Kyle, I know you've been a Dolphins head since the jump. Are they taking home the Lombardi this year?
I don't think so. I think
they're not.
I think the 49ers are going to do it. 49ers are really putting it all together right now.
I will say the 49ers and the Dolphins are the 2 most elaborately constructed teams. Where I feel like if you take out like one piece of the Jenga tower, it can maybe fall. More of a concern with the Dolphins than the 49ers. But like they have less margin for error than I feel like even the Bills would have had if the Bills could have just made the playoffs. Because Josh Allen could just go God mode. Yeah. If like one little thing goes wrong for the Dolphins or 49ers, they're so perfectly calibrated. That's my concern.
I don't feel that way with the 49ers. I get that vibe from the Dolphins, though.
I get the vibe from the Dolphins, and we kind of just got it from the 49ers. It was a big loss, but Trent Williams gets injured, and they like are unwatchable almost for 3 weeks. I mean, Debo was hurt too at the same time, but I do worry a little bit about the 49ers being slightly too elaborately constructed. We got a lot of questions here still. Got some of them are more comments than questions. By the way, keep getting in your questions. We're starting to catch up now to the live questions. I'm just scrolling here for a second. I got to get really close to the screen as I do this. All I see one that says MVS needs to be selling Hondas before the end of the season. That's a bit harsh. He's better than selling Hondas.
I won't make a comment.
Let's take one. We had one about this earlier. Are we dropping Deontay Johnson? I'm assuming they really, 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 really need a roster spot. Will we live to regret dropping Deontay Johnson? Kenny Pickett sounds like he's out at least 2 games.
Yeah. It sounds like he's definitely out 2 games. Has anyone ever regretted, like, not that many people dropped Deontay, but like, has there ever been a point where you're like, oh man, I feel bad for the idiot who dropped him?
No, not really. By the way, I found it. Denny and I talked about on the podcast last night. We got like a really, really kind of sad touchdown celebration from they were down 24-3, and he scored a touchdown. Like Denny compared it to the crying TikTok girl. Like he had a super elaborate touchdown celebration, clearly planned for weeks, and he still did it. But he was really, really like did not look happy while he was doing it, and it was a very bizarre. You should look it up. If you have not seen
I've seen it. I like the crying TikTok because I know exactly what you're talking about when you do that.
But
that's really good.
Yeah, it was a weird moment in a weird game. T-Ray is wondering top QBs to stream in week 14. Pull up your article, Kyle. Tell T-Ray who are we streaming. He's got both Sam Howell and Kyler Murray on bye. I've got a list of streamers for this week too.
I think the answer is Gardner Minshew. He's pretty available. If you really need to scrape the bottom of the barrel, Jameis Winston's probably getting a start this week. And he, for as up and down as every single snap-to-snap instance of his career has ever been, it puts fantasy points on the table.
I loosely rank the streamers in my Sunday aftermath. I don't do any analysis like Kyle, but my off-the-cuff streamer rankings were Gardner Minshew at the Bengals, Jameis Winston versus the Panthers. Beyond that,
3 and 4, like after that, they're all over. They're like 55% owned, but Stafford crossed 50%. Russ has crossed 50% on Yahoo League. So who'd you have after that?
Josh Dobbs at Las Vegas. They are getting Justin Jefferson back. Will Levis at the Dolphins, just kind of hoping for something crazy to happen. Hit a few big plays. Joe Flacco against the Jaguars. I should maybe have Joe Flacco ahead of
Did
Will
you
Levis.
Check for all these guys to be below 50? Because I was impressed.
They're below 50.
I was shocked. Pretty surprised that Dobbs. I have to add Dobbs to my article is why I asked this, because he's just below 50, and he's actually maybe my number 1 for me. I mean, he's like been in the top of the second tier of rushing. He's not Lamar or Jalen Hurts, but he is going to finish like top 4 or 5 in all rushing stats for quarterbacks.
So then, if you're getting really desperate, it was Joe Flacco versus Jaguars or Aiden O'Connell versus the Vikings. So
Flacco, according to Denny, had the most air yards of any quarterback in the NFL last week.
He did. It was 530, I believe.
So many.
Is that like the most ever?
No, it's probably not. No.
It's like that seems really, really high.
I have to dig into that.
That's a lot of air yards. Like that might
ton.
Even you could have a 500-yard passing game and not have 500 air yards. Like that's pretty insane. I had a hard time believing. We should maybe double check that.
No, I think it's right. I will double check it now though, because I'm curious if I can pull up the most in a game.
Brett Lasser is what. So this is the concern when Jameis is a streamer is that
God, this is a brilliant idea.
We will see even more Taysom Hill than normal. Is that going to kneecap the Jameis streamer value, Kyle? I guess the Panthers defense, by the way, actually does limit big plays. It's like the only thing they do well.
I mean, I definitely think it will change the projection for Jameis slightly, but we are talking about Gardner Minshew is the top option. I was excited. You should have, viewers, you saw it. When Pat mentioned Josh Dobbs available in over half of leagues, my eyes lit up. So with that being the context, Jameis Winston, I know he's awful. The thing is, I don't care. He throws for a lot of yards and gets in the end zone a lot. And the bad plays he make almost always give him the ball back right away because it results in a defender.
Sure, if you give him a 6, all that means is another possession, man. Pick 6, maybe even better inside the 20. You already got all the yards from that drive. Just start it over and get some yards and then get the touchdown that drive.
Amen.
Actually, not amen, brother. By the way, we got about 10 minutes left. If you have been a wallflower, haven't asked your question yet, don't want to be on public display, just do it. Ask your question. We're going to get to you. We got a few more minutes here. By the way, is it Elia? He's here every single week. He's on Twitter. He's a big Roto fan. I'm going to say Elia. He's wondering range of running back we are benching for Keaton Mitchell. Because, man, he just seems hard capped in that 8 to 10 range. I can't remember what's the Rams run defense like, but how hard are we working to get Keaton Mitchell into the lineup, Kyle?
I'm not working that hard. Like you said, I mean, touches are king at this position. And although he's been one of the two most efficient. It's like him. If you lower the number of carries required enough, it's just him and Achane and then a chasm between the next most efficient runners. But unlike Achane, we've never seen that. Oh, they just gave him 20 touches this week. And I don't know if we'll ever see that because I think it's crazy that they do it with Achane even.
I know. So, I was stunned. They just did it yesterday. I couldn't believe
they did it late in the game too.
Yeah,
of a
that
blowout.
was wild. That was wild.
I do not have words for how insane that is. And the Ravens probably know this.
Yeah, they're not doing it. The Ravens, I think, with Keaton Mitchell, they just got a set. They might have like all of his plays diagrammed like coming into the game. Like they have a set number of plays in their mind for Keaton Mitchell. And he could produce RB2 numbers on them, or he could be like the RB63 on them. He's more often than not will probably be the RB2. So if you're looking for like a high variance play, Keaton Mitchell, he's a potential matchup flipper. But man, the floor is just a little too low for comfort with Mr. Keaton Mitchell. We have another Keaton question here. Reborn Jungle. Rest of season rankings. Keaton, Breece Hall, yikes, or Aaron Jones. We have no idea when he's going to play.
Probably still Breece for me, but like I did think about it, which tells you how far we've fallen. I mean, it's just specifically this past week. We were told Dalvin Cook would play more. Dalvin Cook played more. I feel nauseous. Like that's the three phases of my Sunday.
He's been more efficient than Breece Hall for like 6 weeks now on far fewer touches, Kyle. But I don't know. Yeah, the Breece indicator lights are blinking red is kind of what you're saying.
I think at this point we still have a lot of receiving volume to hang our hats on for Breece. So as long as you're playing PPR or half PPR, he's still out there getting checkdowns like no one's business. But the long runs are fewer and farther between than we've seen in previous weeks, previous stretches of many weeks. And the offense is not putting him in the red zone ever, really. So you're just hoping if it doesn't break the long one, you picked up like 9 total PPR points just through his receiving. Anything that other than that is gravy. Aaron Jones, I don't really just have a ton of faith in how much of him we will see for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I think you broke it down perfectly. Board running back, more of a comment than a question, but he doesn't think an AC joint injury will hinder Puka. Does he try to speed run all his players in earlier? He had Puka run blocking yesterday after that huge injury where Puka was literally crying and then came back into the game. It was a bit of a curious decision to have run blocking. Anyways, yeah, I don't know anything to add there.
I also don't think I would have put him out there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not as bad as Tank Dell out there, all 120 pounds of him. I can't believe they put him at left guard is the thing.
I was wondering too if that was just a no ball thing, but the ball knowers too were like, oh wow, that was real dumb. You should never have two Tank Dell in the pile pushing.
I get his name Tank, understandably, but he's not. The thing is, use your eyes. He's not.
Use your eyes. If you have any final questions, the time to get them in is now. We have a few more minutes. Steven has Trey McBride on a bye. Kyle Pitts next week, or he's pick up Isaiah Likely this week off the waiver wire. Isaiah Likely was only like 35% rostered this week, Kyle.
I gotta grind these like players. I'll write a player up and just like I think it's just like a narcissism thing. I assume people read it and added him, but I guess they didn't with Isaiah Likely. I mean, he went from 0 to 35. That's still a big jump, but he didn't go over 50. So I got to do that for him and Josh Dobbs. I got good news for you, Pat. I told you on the recap show, I think we have rediscovered the previous way of losing our Kyle Pitts bets. You better believe we did. 90% route rate, all the air yards, all the targets, not a ton of fantasy points. We're back to being not back in a different way. So Kyle Pitts.
Kyle Pitts.
I'm going Kyle Pitts.
So you're doing Pitts over Likely. I'll probably have Pitts over Likely in my rankings this week.
You think, I don't know if I'll have either of them as tight end though, or tight end 1 though. It might be like 13 versus 15 or something.
Yeah, they'll be in like that 13 to 16 range. They'll be very, very close. So Steven, honestly, it's close enough where if you're tired of losing betting on Kyle Pitts, Isaiah Likely will not be an insane option to start over him. We have another Zeke question here. Breeze, we talk about playing for this week, trying to make the playoffs. Are we desperate enough to drop Breece Hall for Ezekiel Elliott? Yeah, sorry. He says he is indeed getting desperate. I just saw that in the question. What do we think? Are we that desperate?
Like, if this is purely winning your head, oh my God.
It's probably
He's going to project for 4.5 more fantasy points than Breece this week. That's what I'm going to say. Do with that information what you will.
He will project for more. I don't know who I'll have ranked higher.
I'm going to rank Zeke higher. I mean, I'm going to project Zeke for 20 touches. It's going to look just like it did versus the Chargers because it's not like Mitch Trubisky is putting up points. So
the Jets are playing the Texans. You know offhand what the Texans' run defense is like? I actually don't.
Probably not good.
Yeah, it doesn't seem great. But yeah, Reborn, Kyle is right. Any projection system is going to have Zeke projected for more points this week. Do with that information what you will. George is number 1 on waivers this week. Should you pick up Christian Watson with the bum wheel or Noah Brown, who did have 0 catches in his return? And Tank Dell was injured pretty early in the game. What do you think, Kyle?
I wish you'd framed it in a way that helped me answer the question more.
Christian Watson is almost certainly not playing this week.
Feels unlikely to say the least. I think for me, it's going to be Noah Brown. Noah Brown ran all the routes last week and just wasn't targeted, but it's not, I mean, he doesn't seem hurt anymore. If you run all the routes, I assume maybe decoying a little bit, but still close, right? Still close to where we need him to be in terms of like health, if not all the way there. And it was just bad luck that he didn't get targeted. He's on a great offense. Now he has way less competition for targets with Dalton Schultz. He didn't practice all last week and then was ruled out. Iffy for this week, and obviously Tank Dell not playing anytime soon. I assume he's done for the year. I don't think they did.
He's done. They did. He's done for the year.
Yeah. I mean, I knew he wasn't returning, but could we get a Mark Andrews rule him out for the Super Bowl situation with him? Is that possible?
No, it doesn't. It's more like a Tony Pollard injury. I think it's not really a good injury. Yeah,
that sucks. Noah Brown for me.
And Noah Brown, a point in his favor this week. Nico Collins could be dealing with Sauce Gardner a lot in that game. So I think we would go with it's Noah Brown for sure. The ad. T-Ray, Isaiah Likely or Pat Fryermuth. Pat Fryermuth, quote, nuked in the first post-Matt Canada game and then did nothing in this really, really disjointed, sloppy Steelers game yesterday. But are we still going with the Muth over Isaiah Likely, Kyle?
I think I'd probably go Likely here. Fryermuth got away with it a bit in his first game back in that, right? I guess it was his second game back, but his first game actually producing fantasy points in that he ran a route on less than 2/3 of the team's dropbacks and just got targeted a ton. Do I think that, and his route rate almost didn't move an inch in week 13. He still didn't run a route in 2/3 of the team's dropbacks. A part-time plus player, but still part-time as part of that sort of nomenclature. I think I'll take Isaiah Likely because he's just is getting more routes and he's on a far better team, obviously.
I haven't delved into it yet. Off the top of my head, I'll probably still have Pat Fryermuth ranked higher, but there's not going to be a ton of separation between them. And you had a pretty sensible breakdown there. That's one where we need a little more information. We're actually out of new questions. We're about to sign off. If you have a last second question, the time is quite literally now. If not, Kyle and I, we're going to go get on with our Monday evening. Settle in for a wonderful Jaguars Jake Browning matchup. I need Cal Ridley to go absolutely nuclear tonight, Kyle. Calvin, I don't know why I call him Cal. Calvin Ridley. Also need the Jags D to really go nuts. I need Jake Browning to get unmasked, is what I'm saying here.
Well, like he never wore a mask, so.
No, it's true. Well, it looks like we're out of questions. So we'll call it quits. Thank you so much for participating. Really, really good stuff as always. We really appreciate your participation. We hope you guys make the playoffs. It's the final week to do so and qualify. Hopefully you weren't overly reliant on Commanders and Cardinals, who are for some reason on bye. So check out Kyle's waivers article. Check out his 32 facts. Check out my rankings coming out later in the week. Listen to our Week 14 preview show on Thursday. So for Kyle Dvorchak and I'm Patrick Daugherty, thank you for viewing. We will be back next week at 6 p.m. Eastern.